South African consumers are generally very satisfied with the goods and services across a number of industries. This is according to the latest South African Customer Satisfaction Index, which showed the country scored a customer satisfaction score of 77.6 out of 100. Now, joining us now to share more on this index is the index founder as well as chairman is Andre Schroeder. Andre, thank you so much for your time. Just looking at those numbers, I'm a bit surprised. A lot of the time you hear South African consumers walking into a store and complaining and shouting, and to be quite satisfied is a surprise for many South Africans.
Definitely. I think this is one thing that I wish to actually change. The South Africans are very critical of ourselves, and for years we haven't really measured up. Now we can actually say we did measure up. It's only Turkey that is better than us. Currently in the license holder countries that where this is measured. And if you think that we've actually beaten the likes of USA, the UK, some of the best European countries, I think we have something to be proud of.
Andre, how is this measured?
Yeah. It is a total of 19 industries that we've included in the first year of rollout. A total of 103 companies, representative of the South African consumer economy. So this does not include business to business, it's purely consumers. We did a total sample of 44,200 odd interviews. It was basically telephonic and web-based, and it goes through a standardized battery of questions that test the satisfaction of customers on about 5 or 6 different issues. And then this is a statistical model that calculates an index according to the American Customer Satisfaction Index that we are a license holder of.
A lot of number crunching there, but how, I mean, South Africa is a society where there's so much negative sentiment, just with regard to economic growth, to walking to a grocery store and, you know, buying a loaf of bread. What does this say about us? What trends does this reveal?
It definitely says that there are some industries that's really doing good, but let's not be only optimistic. There are some industries that's really battling. You know, if you take our airlines industry, if we take our medical aid industry, we take banking, some of the financial services, those are some of the, let's call it, lower scoring industries. But then we take our retail industry, food, I'm talking about retail clothing, I'm talking about our petrol stations, even the athletic shoes. You know, athletic shoes came out this year as the top scoring industry, which means that customers really love that particular product, and the industry is doing well.
How does cost relate to this? You mentioned the petrol stations. We know that in South Africa our petrol price is ever so erratic. When the price of fuel goes up, I don't think a lot of the attendants tend to smile more though.
It does have a role, and one see that in the model where we actually measure what we call perceived value. We do see that petrol stations do score a little bit lower, because obviously one can imagine petrol price does have a role to play. But it's not only the fuel price that actually plays a role, because it's the total fuel station that is measured. So the front court store and the actual goods that you purchase in the actual store is also part of that. We do see that some of the high scoring companies are premium brands. But then we also see some,
like a Woolworths?
Yeah, Woolworths. Woolworths came up tops in 2 of the industries, both in retail food and retail clothing. But then we see a company like Pep Stores that is just below Woolworths when it comes to clothing, which means it's more of a discounter brand. So it's not to say that you just need to be a premium brand to do good in customer satisfaction. You can actually do very well even if you're a discounter brand.
Audrey, I'd like us to go back just to the measurement of this. Does it have to go with regard to the look and the feel of the company that you're stepping into, or the kind of service that you get from the employees of the company?
Definitely the latter. It is, you know, look and feel and corporate image does play a role, but it's more to do with the expectations customers have of that particular product and of the company. So you have certain expectations, and then when you actually engage in the experience, we measure your confirmation or disconfirmation of that expectation. Did we get what we expected, or didn't we get? And then we actually take into account the perceived value. Is it good value for money or is it not? And then it's calculated into a statistical index, and that then comes to South Africa's average of 77.6. And that's basically how it works. Then there's 2 outcome variables. The one is service problems or complaints, and it's a negative correlation. The lower the satisfaction, the higher the complaints. That goes without saying. But the reverse is also true, but we can start predicting it. And that's one area where South Africa is currently not so good when it comes to international comparison, is our complaints handling, and South Africa has got a lot to improve on.
Do you monitor the public sector in this at all?
Public sector is due for the 2014 rollout. Obviously, we're going to do local authorities first. We would like to do that before the election. so that we can actually ascertain the depth of the problem. And then there's the likes of SARS and DTI and all sorts of the major public entities that we are going to include.
Have you seen a correlation perhaps between customer satisfaction and brand loyalty?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a very strong correlation. As a matter of fact, the particular model, the last outcome variable is what we call loyalty. And in this particular model, we can actually see the degree to loyalty is actually quite strong, which means that customers come back because they're satisfied. And in America, this is actually linked to the economic share prices. And for the last 14 years, it's actually tracked very, very positively in a positive correlation. So soon we would be able to actually report on this with share prices and say, well, share prices, customer satisfaction move together, because a satisfied customer means that they buy again. And therefore the company would prosper as a result of that.
That's an interesting assessment that you make there, because you mentioned some of the companies or rather sectors that face a lot or rather low levels of customer satisfaction. That's the airline industry, banking, as well as financial services sector, as well as medical aid companies. Now this is not news to our ears, because if we look at what's been in the news recently, we know about the turmoil in the airlines industry, especially the low-cost carriers. We know about the medical aids. They also got going under investigation by the Competition Commission. So no doubt this might also come through in their share prices.
It must be. You know, if we look at the airlines, for instance, the airlines are scoring an average of 68.3, whereas the national average is 77.6. That is significantly lower. So I think airlines needs to just look a little bit into their soul and just see what's wrong. And I think there's a lot wrong. And there's, you know, low-cost airlines, I think there's a massive opportunity here, because people just believe it to be too expensive and not value for money.